So hello and welcome back to Go Again Gaming. My name is Az, and today we're going to be speaking about how we can tackle Warmongers Diplomacy as an Azalea player, if that is such a thing. But before we go into this, please make sure you like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and check out the link in the description box below for goagaingaming.com with a plethora of ways you can help support the channel, like Patreon. Thank you very much to all the patrons out there. Your names are flashing up on the screen right now for your continued generosity and support on this channel. It goes a long way. Warmongers Diplomacy is a card. For everybody who doesn't know what it does for whatever reason, or you want to recap it for this video, I'm going to do that for you. So it is a new card from Dusk Till Dawn. It pitches for 3, it costs nothing to play, and it blocks for 3. Great stats all round. But this effect is absolutely crushing for Rangers, which we're going to go into in a moment, Azalea specifically. So it says, starting with the hero on your left, each hero chooses War or Peace. If they choose War, the only actions they may play or activate during their next turn are weapon and attack actions. So basically, as an Azalea player, you can fire arrows that are already in your arsenal if this gets played on you, or you can load your arsenal with your bow to then fire an arrow out of your arsenal, basically. If they choose Peace, the only actions they may play or activate during the next turn are non-weapon, non-attack actions. Now, there's probably no reason whatsoever to choose Peace if you're an Azalea player, because, let's be honest, the only people that choose Peace are wizards, because they're the ones that can play non-attack actions that actually deal damage. So every other hero essentially chooses War most of the time. But that is the card, Warmongers Diplomacy. It's an absolute menace at the moment. It's seeing loads of play all over the competitive meta, and it is an absolute heal for Azalea players, and we're going to go into the reasons why that is now. So the pain of Warmongers for Ranger is, first of all, you cannot arsenal a non-attack while you know that the matchup that you're playing is potentially running Warmongers, because Rangers can't attack from hand. So what you basically have to do is make sure that if you're playing against a Warmongers player or a Warmongers deck that has Warmongers in it, which is basically all decks right now, you need to make sure that you are filling your arsenal with an attack card rather than a non-attack card. Because if you get screwed and they choose that, or they play the Warmongers, you're not going to be able to attack, because Rangers can't attack from hand, typically speaking. We'll go into the sort of caveats of that later. But you can't do any of your Azalea stuff either, because if you choose War, then you have to attack from your arsenal, so you won't be able to do the Skullbone thing where you flip up your card. You can't activate Azalea's ability to get that card out of there if you chose War. If you choose Peace, however, you can do that, but that means you're not attacking that turn at all. So normally, as I said, all the other heroes want to be choosing War when this is played against them to still potentially do something, but Ranger gets stumped because they can't attack from hand unless they have attack action cards, which we'll get to in a bit. So yeah, that's one of the things. Obviously, it clogs your arsenal if you've got a non-attack in there. Obviously, Rangers, they tend to stack a load of on-hits and a load of buffs onto one arrow to make that arrow as valuable as possible, with multiple on-hits and big damage and dominated attacks and all that good stuff. You can't do that on a Warmonger's turn, because you can't play non-attack followed by attack. So you basically have to deal with just having your base arrows, and that's normally quite a waste of value, because you're not getting the big dominate, because you can't do that on Warmonger's turns either, because you can't activate Azalea because it's a non-attack action. And obviously you're not getting all the buffs that you put behind your massive arrows, because you can't play non-attacks. So it does take away a lot of our value there as well, which we can address in a little bit. But yeah, it doesn't allow you to stack up huge attacks or buff like bolt and shots to go wide or all that good stuff. So yeah, it's very, very debilitating in that manner as well. And obviously you can't activate your cross wrap or use Azalea's ability to filter or dig for answers in response to the Warmongers, because you can't activate non-attack actions if you choose War. And you would not be choosing Peace as Azalea, let's be honest. This either screws you either way. You have to choose War. If you choose Peace, you're just not doing anything. They're just taking an extra turn, essentially, which is horrible. But yeah, that leads me on to my sort of first point is if you think the opponent is going to be using Warmongers, so you got heroes like Katsu, who cares about obviously blue zero cost things to fuel the Kodachis, Dromai, Icelander, Bravo, and basically just the whole meta at this point loves Warmongers to hose Rangers. Best things to consider here are always Arsenal, an attack action card while you have Snapdragons still available to you. So obviously sometimes you won't have Snapdragons because you're playing against Bravo and you need the extra block or something like that. I normally use Perch against Bravo and other heroes where I might want to block. But if you have Snapdragons available, it's always worth just arsenaling that arrow or arsenaling that attack action card. So that will allow you to, if you get Warmongered, you can still choose War, and then that will allow you to fire that arrow or that attack out of your arsenal, and then follow up with the bow activation to fire another arrow. If you use the Snapdragons to give that thing from your arsenal go again. A lot of arrows don't inherently have go again unless you got bolt-on shots, but the only way you'll be able to get bolt-on shots go again on these Warmongers turns if you happen to have Rain Razors. Rain Razors is one of those things that can change the landscape on Warmongers turns. But yeah, if you've got Snapdragons available and you're hit with the Warmongers on your opponent's turn, you can always arsenal an attack and then have a fairly wide attack going forward because you can activate the snappies on the first attack that you do. Your bow wouldn't have been activated that turn, so you can then activate it, put something else into your arsenal, draw a card, and then fire that one as well. So at least you're still pressuring some form of turn on the Warmongers' turns. And of course, you can only do that the once, of course, because obviously once snappies is not available anymore, arsenaling that one attack action card that you might have is going to be a lot less valuable, right? So while you have snappies available, while you think you're going to face a Warmongers, you can always arsenal attack cards to still threaten some high value stuff going forward there. You may get lucky with a lot of attack actions that can be played from hand on a Warmonger's turn, like Ravenous Rabbles, E-Strikes, and all that sort of good stuff that can be played from your hand as a Ranger, but you can't rely on those hands to sort of compose themselves when a Warmonger's comes around, because a Warmonger's can happen at any time, so having an attack in your arsenal, rather than being greedy and putting a buff in there and all that good stuff, it's always worth, while you still have the Snapdragon Scalers available, to put an attack action card in your arsenal instead, especially as a Ranger player, because you can only fire arrows from the arsenal, of course. And obviously the Snapdragons will allow you to continuously still put that little bit of pressure on them on the Warmongers' turns. Another point that I think would be worth considering or worth looking at, again, I have zero credibility and no tournament results, but I'm just an Azalea player through and through, is running more high-value attack action cards that can be played from hand. So things like Command and Conquer, E-Strike, Rabble. E-Strike and Rabble are pretty much Azalea staples anyway, and maybe even looking at things like Scar for a Scar or Nimble Strike for the go-again attacks. But CNC is one of the ones I can think of that are probably going to have the most value in these sorts of post-Warmongers decks. Again, I could be completely wrong, but this is something I'm thinking of. CNC might now be a 3 of in my own personal Azalea deck in the deck list itself, simply because it's an evasive and high-value attack that can still take your opponent's arsenal away. And even if they do block the CNC, you are still getting armor and other cards potentially away from them on those Warmongers turns. Another good thing as well is normally if your opponent is playing a Warmongers, they're probably going to arsenal a card as well before that. So they're probably going to play the Warmongers, after that. They're probably going to play the Warmongers and then arsenal a card to set up, take away your valuable turn, and then come back round to them again where they can hit you with a 5-card hand, essentially, because of the arsenal. Now, what will happen is, if you then play a CNC after the Warmonger's turn, after they've arsenaled, suddenly that plan is going out the window. So you can actually get some value out of the CNC and out of the fact that you can only play attack actions. You can play that CNC. It might even be the fact that you play 2 actions that turn with the CNC in hand, perhaps. Maybe you've arsenaled, as I said earlier, an arrow card. You play that, use snappies to give it go again, and then play the CNC after that. You can still have some sort of value. But I think CNC is one of the things that might see play going forward because of this in Ranger decks. I know I'm going to be including 3 of those now. Whenever I think that the opponent's going to be using Warmongers, which is most of the time, I think 3 CNCs might be a good shout. And again, I'm just looking at this as a casual player, but an Azalea main through and through anyway. But obviously you can still look at other cards as well, like the go again attacks like Scar for a Scar and E-Strike and Rabble. Those are normally Azalea staples anyway. But other things like Scar for a Scar might shore up those turns where you can only play attack actions. It's not ideal, but again, it could be something worth trying in the wake of this, obviously, this menace to Azalea decks, Warmongers Diplomacy. But in summary, I think Warmongers really does hurt the Azalea plan of buffing those horrible arrows and firing them for both wide turns and very tall dominated turns. You can't do that when Warmongers is active. You have to really sort of work for that two attack turn that Azalea really likes, or that, you know, well, you have to really. If you're under a Warmongers, you can only really go wide. You can't go tall because of the fact that non-attacks don't do anything anymore. So yeah, you do have to approach the matchups a little bit differently now. You have to take your time a little bit more, and I think, again, arsenaling attack action cards that are active with Snapdragons available. Most arrows, well, all arrows apart from Battering Bolt will be active with Snapdragons, is where I think the emphasis needs to be on arsenaling those attacks, so we don't get caught out when the opponent drops the diplomacy and just, you know, because if we don't have that in our arsenal, if we don't have an attack in our arsenal, we can do absolutely nothing. Unless, of course, there's a Rain Razors there. So that's another point as well you could make, is Rain Razors is not a non-attack action card. So you can, if you want, you can arsenal a Rain Razors, because you can play that because it's an instant. And then if you have an arrow in your follow-up turn, you can then activate Death Dealer, put the arrow in, draw a card, but then you're still not really doing too much because you can only attack once with that, because then you can't load your bow afterwards, because we don't have the bullseye braces anymore, so we can't really do that line anymore where if you've activated your bow, you can't then put another thing into your arsenal unless you've got the bolt and shot on hit reload, which is probably not going to happen on a Warmongers follow-up turn unless you've Rain Razored it, for instance. So yeah, best playing it safe, I think, going forward, although I could be wrong. Leave a comment in the section below as to what you feel the best strategy or approach might be for this card now that is in the face of Azalea players at the moment. So thank you very much for listening. Please make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel and all that good stuff. Hit the little bell notification if you want to be notified of my face every now and again. But yeah, thank you very much. Again, all the patrons are going to be flashing up now for your constant support, and we'll see you to do it all over again on a video very soon. Cheers.